those of you who don't know, who are joining us. This is a fun class today because we're going to be going into AI. For those of you who were with us in last week's class on Wednesday, we talked about ChatGPT and how it can be used to help you guys come up with treatments and log lines and even movie posters. But today we're going to go to the next level. We are graced with Jessica Campbell, who is an expert in all things AI. Currently she runs a series called Creative Currents, where they host events and kind of AI networking series. Is that the best way to describe it, I guess?
Yeah, mostly AI for creatives. I'll show you more about it.
She'll go into more detail, but Jessica has an amazing career. She started at iHeartMedia, and she's actually worked with Seinfeld, and she's done a lot of really cool stuff. And I think we're all going to learn a lot today. So please pay attention, bring your questions, because there's no denying that AI is going to be revolutionizing. It already has, but in the years to come, it's going to be changing more and more. We're just at the beginning of it. So ask Jessica everything you want, because this is where you're going to get a leg up, right? So without any further ado, Jessica Campbell.
Thank you. I no promises I'm going to know everything, but I do know a lot. But I'm very excited to be here, very happy to be here. And let's get started. So our topic, AI for film. But just to reintroduce myself, my name is Jess. I got my start at iHeartRadio. I've worked in digital for about 10 years or so. I went to New York. I worked in lots of different agencies working on mainly digital production projects, so like apps, websites, digital experiences. Working with clients to figure out how they can figure out a solution for whatever they're trying to achieve, whether it's Dick's Sporting Goods and figuring out the future of e-commerce, or Royal Caribbean and figuring out how to rethink their digital design system across all of their ships. Or like he said, Jerry Seinfeld, I worked with him on his social media marketing and his portfolio, which was a very interesting experience. And all of those brought me to what I'm doing today. So a big part of my background as being a producer for the world of digital production is making everything a little bit easier for people to figure out their vision and how to tell their vision. So when I work with clients, it was how can you unlock an easier way to put together the proposal, the plan for you to create that project, and how to bring that team together. When I worked with the creatives, it was how can I help you to unlock the process to tell your story better, make our client happy, make everybody happy, but also create something that reflects your true vision. So that's why AI has been an extremely beneficial thing to my career. And I've fallen down the rabbit hole as of a year ago, right when OpenAI came out. And my CEO at the time mentioned the stat of it took Facebook 2.5 years to reach 10 million users, Twitter about a year and a half, I think Instagram 6 months, and OpenAI 2 months. And for me, I was all right, immediately pay attention. And we had the opportunity to use it at work, and since then I've started Creative Currents, which is a passion project of mine. I was tired of going to tech talks that didn't feel like they were immediately something that I can use. I didn't feel like it was accessible information. I didn't feel like people I worked with would necessarily be at most of the tech talks I was going to. I didn't feel like they were interactive enough. Honestly, it was mostly really expensive, solutions, bring your Tesla to space. I don't know. It just never felt like something I could go to work and talk to designers I worked with immediately. So I wanted to make a meetup that felt, inclusive, interactive, and that you were going to learn about something that was immediately applicable to something that you can use tomorrow, today. And also that it was open to all types of creatives. We're definitely staying in a room where everybody here is, you've got the label of a creative. You're in a film school, you're gonna walk out here and everyone's gonna be that's obviously creative. But there's real estate agents who need a creative way to learn how to use AI. There's all types of people who need to learn that. And that's what Creative Currents is about. You're welcome to come to more events. I usually have a slide that has, I guess it got deleted, but it's creativecurrents.mia, but you'll find me. All right, so AI for Creatives was my first one. I had a screenwriter, a UX designer, and the DJ duo Paper Water come and show how they were applying it to their process. I did one on neuroplasticity for creatives, which had nothing to do with AI, but it was how can you use tech to tap into flow state, which was great. But after that, everyone was like, more AI, more AI. So that's kind of what like led this journey. I did one on AI for digital art, on how to use Midjourney. We're gonna play around with that today. And I told the story of Pappy the Cappy and showed how we can like make a consistent character and bring that to life. Did AI for social media, created like a AI Barbie as my co-host and went through the whole process of how you can use AI to create your social media strategy. I did one on AI for music, and this is with Brittany Berger of Mindful Music Lab, Paper Water again, Bachelor John Pierre, and we went through the entire music production process, from creating the song, writing the lyrics, recording the music video, having someone come up and record the song and go through the process a little bit faster with AI. And then AI for small biz, not sure you care about that. AI for vision, I did that one on like personal development. We did a workshop where we went through the whole process. Actually, we started, does anybody know who Rick Rubin is?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. So I created like a AI-led meditation where a robot, Rick Rubin, led us through a flow state meditation. And then we went through a personal development workshop, took all of that output and put it into a bot that was like our AI life coach. And I know you guys just learned how to create bots, right? So it was a good example to show like how you can take your own expertise, your strategy, your approach, put that into a bot and see how it synthesizes information. A fun experiment for later on in life. Did a talk at the Bass, worked with the city to do AI for innovation and how you can take AI for good and apply it to pressing issues. For this, we focused on the opioid crisis, voter education, and the rising sea level. And the output of that led to Synego, which I'm working on now, which is a product that focuses on design thinking powered by AI and how people can get strategies more efficiently, quicker. From my background working at agencies, people are spending like $500,000 to $1 million to get a PDF that they might know how to apply for. That's the agency role. So we wanted to create something that was a little bit cleaner, that creatives could use within that world, that didn't necessarily blow up, or delete people's jobs, but something that you can integrate into the process without having to make everybody be an AI expert. They could just use the tool, enhance their process. So that's who I am. That's what I do. But I always approach these talks from the point of view of staying human, or being the human in the loop, and like the importance of that, which is really important to how you guys approach it. So of course, like your craft is really important about telling human stories, right? Oh, come on in. Also, can I turn down the lights?
Of course, yeah.
How do I do that?
Gordon, can you hit the lights for us? Yeah.
Also, feel free to like ask me any questions. Now I can't see. Oh, we got a question.
Yeah,
I know, like, where are you?
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
I'm just
ready
kidding.
for the correctness, I guess.
Damn, only because, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, depending on what you said before, you skipped over small biz, but I'm kind of in that one.
That one was on like top 10 tips on how small businesses, what happened, could apply AI to, I guess, like some of the more popular needs, like admin or like finding clients. I can talk to you more about that. I'm not gonna lie, this deck is super long, so I don't want to go too, and that's since it's so off topic, but I'm happy to connect with you afterwards and I can show you more. Yeah?
Thank you.
No worries. So yeah, my approach is really about like I'm pro AI, but I'm not like pro automation. So my point of view is, how can it make you a better creative? How can it make you a more critical thinker? When I showed that video of AI for music, Paper Water was a great example of creatives who are being enhanced by it. And they said using AI with their process helped them to learn music theory a little bit more stronger. So that's where I'm coming at from today. I'm totally open to hearing anybody's feedback where they're against these things. I think that adds flavor to the conversation. So to start, what are your feels on AI. So let's say like, I'm pro, I love it, I'm ready to start using it today. Anybody? Ooh, a mixture. Okay. Against. Scared. Concerned. Curious. What's the main feeling? Somebody shout some things.
Accessibility.
Accessibility. That's a good one.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty. There's a word in someone else. Okay, there you go.
Terminator?
Terminator. I used to think the usual picture behind her is like honestly a Terminator looming over an office, so that's pretty funny. Okay, that's understood. So let's take those feelings and let's explore AI and film tonight. Let's explore how we feel about it in the film space, how we can use it to tell our stories better, whether we're filmmakers or not. How quickly can you create things, of course? How is film made with AI legit? Let's talk about that. How can AI escalate your vision? How can it help you sell your story better? And how can you use it as a means to define your style? And how can you integrate some of your favorite influences with your own style? All right, so this quick landscape. We know AI is transforming the world of film. This is from 4 years ago, a kind of familiar looking Back to the Future, but if you look a little bit closer, you'll see they're using like deep fake technology. You see Robert Downey Jr. there as Doc, and I think that's Tom Holland. So, okay, we saw that a while ago. We saw like the Tom Cruise doing things that wasn't him, all that kind of technology. But the technology wasn't so accessible then, so it didn't feel, I guess, as an immediate need to respond to it. But this is an example of now that type of technology is open to the public, how people are using it for business. So this is a company called Soul Machines. And recently at South by Southwest, they had a demo where they used Marilyn Monroe, her likeness, and showed how you can use it on this platform and use hundreds of other celebrities and figures and athletes and famous speakers and take their name, image, and likeness and use it for what I don't know, but I know some of them are trying to use it for like journalists that might have been with us in the past, and how you can use their likeness, or other types of artists that you still might want to engage with. So name, image, and likeness is coming into the realm more accessibly. Andrew, you put me on to this. This is one of the IG influencers who used to be an artist who kind of like focused mainly on like 3D design, and now he's taking his love for film into creating these like short films pretty regularly. I think he posts a new one every day. So there's a lot of like this type of art coming out that I think is intriguing people, and we'll actually play with like creating something like this ourselves. The first AI commercial was Salesforce and Matthew McConaughey, and how that started playing into the world. I think he's saying something like AI, new landscape, new frontier, something like that. So we're starting to see it come into the mainstream there. This is a music video from Skrillex and Fred Again. They used Kyber to make this music video. What else? Marvel used this for the opening title sequence for a show called Secret Invasion. And it was from a studio that has a traditional background, and they wanted to create a title sequence that I guess gave away the feeling of curiosity and a little bit of concern. I guess they felt that had to go with the film, so they wanted to use AI. They also used Kyber for this, but once again, this is in the hands of filmmakers, so it's really interesting to see that mesh. And of course, we've seen the strikes. This isn't the first time it's happened, but now this is the first time we're seeing it with the issue of how AI affects the film industry and actors and pay, and what's right. And after 4 months, it ended, and I think like the main thing, what was the negotiation came down to that when they use generative AI, it must be used to create a synthetic character. Even if it was just like an eyelash from Denzel Washington, they had to have the rights to use it. But I think that the most important takeaway from this is yay for regulation, but mostly like you can't really regulate properly without being educated on the process to use these things and how AI is being implemented. So more on that. Everybody heard about when Tyler Perry shut down like a studio expansion. It was for a sound studio. I don't think a lot of people are upset about it, but it did like spark a bigger conversation, and what sparked it was around the launch of Sora, which is not out yet because it's still being tested. They think it's going to be out later this year. But Sora, I think everyone's heard about Sora, right? So Sora, just in case, text to video through OpenAI, extremely powerful. Let's see like some of the prompts. This was like puppies playing in the snow or something like that. Let's see a few more. But as you can see, it's like super high def. We don't know, they're clearly going to show us like the best versions of what's coming out of these tests. But these are some examples of people using Sora. So everyone's kind of seen this already, right? Yeah, interesting stuff. Okay, are you excited to get your hands on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, me too. All right, so let's talk about AI for film, or even more. I like to do talks like this through the day in the life of people who would use this for this specific category. So of course, AI for film, let's like think about AI in the writer's room. So I did this from the point of view of, let's actually talk about it more specifically. We're going to enter the writer's room and we're going to start it with ChatGPT. So imagine they're in New York, this is Monday, they went to go see a movie together, they're getting started on this, the film that they're focused on creating is a film called Echoes of Tomorrow.
Welcome to Lumina, the utopia dystopia born from Silicon Valley's dreams. In the wake of a global pivot to remote existence, safety trumps physical connection, and relationships are woven through the digital web. Here, Olivia, an architect, wrestling with her craft's rapid evolution, crosses paths with Jack, a software developer whose newest invention paradoxically promises to connect yet isolate them further in this brave new world. Together, as they endeavor to meld the nostalgia of the past with the demands of the future, they uncover a chilling reality. An AI, designed as a matchmaker for the era of distance love, harbors a darker agenda, erasing the essence of love itself. Embarking on a quest that winds through the heart of a world where affection is quantified, Olivia and Jack face the ultimate challenge: to discern genuine feelings from those manufactured by code. Their voyage is a mirror reflecting humanity's enduring
I knew it was going to happen. Well, AI wrote that. So it gets better as we go. But let's say it's 9 a.m. And they're at the beginning of their writing process, and they want to write a psychological thriller rom-com that's inspired from a movie they saw over the weekend. They want to bring in some of the elements of Murakami, magical realism, cerebral twists. They all have different points of view in their room, but they need to get this together by end of day. That's a challenge, and that's like the reality of a lot of these timelines, especially like in my world, like everything is due yesterday. So that's their challenge. And the other challenge is like merging all of their different ideas together in the room. So I'm sure everybody has done like the basics of like, you probably have tons of ideas that you went into ChatGPT already and thought like, make this into a script, right? So I just wanted to come up with, other little ways for how you can use it to be a little bit more effective, whether it's for film or for anything else. So one thing I like is I prefer to start any of my creative processes with pen to paper. That was a picture of my scribbles on my desk. So you could just take any image, if that's your preferred route, to maintain that sense of artistry for yourself, to upload it that way. Another way is talk to text. Imagine you're in a room, you know, we're recording this, and I know that you're now starting to do voice to text for notes, right? Probably have already done this, but Otter AI or just uploading the transcript directly into that is an easy way to get everybody on the same page, upload it to that. Okay, that's simple. You might have done that already. But another thing to do, has anybody played with like merging some of their favorite artists or speakers or writers, what their opinion would be on their work, playing with their voice and tone? Yeah, that's a really great way to, I guess, enhance the output, because a lot of the writing you're gonna get from ChatGPT is gonna be very like in a world, you know, it's gonna be like, you know, it's gonna be very basic. But I like to see how you can push it a little bit further by saying like, all right, if I'm working on my startup, I like to say, all right, imagine it's Shark Tank. I'm going up in front of Mark Cuban. What's he gonna say? Okay, imagine like, what's this guy gonna say? So for this, I asked what would be like Sofia Coppola's notes, or who else did I say? Of course, Wes Anderson. I know these are like basic film directors for you guys, but what would be their notes on the script at a high level? And then further, what would be their notes applied directly to my script? So that helps me to kind of see like how I can immediately switch it. And I really like to play with like that panel feedback style. I think a really cool thing is if you wanted to develop a bot that had that voice and tone for your favorite directors or artists, whatever the point of view is, you pretty much upload anything that you write or consider into that bot as like your go-to voice of reason, I guess. Come on in. I don't know who that is. All right. So yeah, I'm going to show you an example. So after I had it go through, I added Spike Jonze as well. What feedback would they give specifically? It's telling me to like emphasize atmosphere, lean into character depth, but in this type of way, how she would approach it. I think that's really cool for me to see. It's almost like putting me at the table with people. Maybe down the line you'll meet this person, but until then, we have the AI version of what Wes Anderson's direct notes would be on how you approach lighting or the dialogue and whatnot. Okay, so, and then we have the feedback applied directly, so you can see a little bit closer of how we applied that. Any questions? No. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're saying that it's possible that specific like viewpoint can be merged with on the basis of that's just already written or anything like that?
Well, in this example, I just took the draft of the script I already had up there and applied it directly. So you could see it here. I asked, all right, now just apply this directly into the script I had. So you can see it's like a little bit more beefier than before.
So like specific styles and things like that, themes of what those directors or what those specific styles can be like applied to yours?
You could. Yeah, for this one it focused on character. I think it was dialogue, and I think I forget what the other one was. I think it was the description of the scenery. But there's really not any rules. It's just how can you apply it more strategically. All right. I think it's a nice, so going back to talking about how Paper Water, for example, used this as a way to enhance their music theory. I think it's really good to see how can you use it to reverse engineer your strategy for what you're doing. So after I did that, I wanted to see what ChatGPT saw my style to be. Like, how would you define my approach in writing? And, you know, I think that's a good way to highlight, see how it perceives you. Doesn't mean it's completely right, but for me, that's a great way to kind of see like how would you approach use AI as your mirror. I don't want to like promote, becoming one with technology so intensely, but I think use it as your mirror to see how it could give you feedback as much as possible. on your authentic approach. All right, so let's imagine it's 10:30 a.m. and the team has their story idea down, but they need to draft a rough plot outline and a storyboard. So once again, I'm pretty sure like we've all done these things, but how can we try it to be a little bit more different, dig a little bit deeper? So I used it to draft a plot outline and a storyboard. So you'll see it's like telling me act 1 is this, you meet the characters, act 2, which tells me their first encounter, pretty much the basic stuff. Then I'm getting my storyboard. I'm gonna lay out the scenes and, you know, once again, I'm not a film expert, I'm a film fan. I'm sure there's a lot more details you can drive through for here. But when I'm using this, I guess to, let's say like in the, you know, digital world, and we have to create concept videos to sell a product at the end of we have it usually in 3 phases, like the vision phase, the design phase, and then the execute phase where it goes into development. At the end of our vision phase, we always have to create a video. Typically have to work with the screenwriter, have to work with the motion designer, the whole voiceover. We have to do the whole storyboard process. So for me, this is really helpful for me to kind of lay out the scenes in a way that was very hard for me to do before, in a way that I could always easily communicate to everyone. A lot of times, because you're working with people from, you know, different countries, different backgrounds, different layers of experience. All right, so we have it lay out our storyboard, but the most interesting thing, I guess, well, we'll get to the images, but I like to be able to take it to charts. If you're working with a producer, like how can you make this more clear, more organized? This is all the admin stuff out the way. Like how can you just make this very easy for you to plan and get a clear picture of like what you need to do? So pro tip, chart it out in ChatGPT whenever you can. Has anybody done that already before? Charts. Okay, charts. Okay. Charts are exciting to me because I'm a producer, but I don't know if anybody else is. Charts are fun. So just asked it to do that. I had it lay it out by scene, what each role needs to do in each scene, like what is the picture style, like give me the creative direction on each area. This just helps me to define a structure when I'm going through everything. Even when I'm like creating stories like you'll see in this today, I need to kind of go through this process, and putting it in this format helps me to give you like a really good structure. All right, so most exciting part is visualizing. I am not a huge fan of Dolly has saved me in a lot of great things. This helps me with like creating marketing images or just general concepts, but Dolly is great for some things, but it's really hard to get it to drive to the direction and the vision that I have sometimes. It might be kind of, there's definitely a specific style that comes out of Dolly. It's usually like highly saturated, which is cool for some things, but when you're trying to create consistent characters, I would go with Midjourney, and we'll go into that in the next act. So let's bring Midjourney and other AI art tools into the room. So imagine it's 11:30 and the team is focusing to character development. They have their plot, their storyboard, they have their plans, they have the start of a draft of a script, but they need to sell this vision a little bit more clear. They need to give a little direction on what this world looks like. They don't want people to kind of just gloss over it. So we want to get some creative touches to bring that to life. So playing with character development. Anybody in this room want to talk about how they've used ChatGPT to help with character development? If they have, has it been good or not good? I'm kind of curious on that.
I mean, when I've used for like some scripts, when I've used it for like certain like scenes, like it's not really, it's kind of character development where ChatGPT will like shift around some lines and like make me think about the character in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or like I wouldn't really think the character would say something like that, and I'm like, oh wait, no, it fits.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Flip the perspective. Anyone else? Okay, so personally, it helps guide, and I did have it help me find like what's the friction, like give me a little bit more backstory on who these characters are. For this exercise, I felt like it could have gone a little bit deeper, but I think that's a great question to ask, like help me look at this character from another angle. And did you feel like the output was good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just made the character deeper, I think.
Okay. All right. So let's say you have your characters now, you have a good description, it's describing who they are, what they're like, their personality and tone, their favorite song, things like that. Now I'm just like for a montage, I wanted to show, like start to bring in Mid-Journey. Let's imagine the team is like, they're in New York and they go on their lunch break, and they're basically going out into the real world to gather some ideas from real people to build those characters a little bit deeper, and taking notes in the real world. When they're bringing that back to the office, they're using paper, they're going to take pictures of their notes, they're going to take the voice to text, and they're going to bring it into the app. So they're back and they're ready to visualize their characters. They got real world inspiration, they got AI inspiration, and they're using Mid-Journey to visualize these characters and these key settings, and they're blending all of that inspiration from today. So like I said, you could use DALL-E. So I asked it, just visualize. Directly in that thread, I said, visualize what these characters look like from before. And then it created these two characters for me, which I don't think they're not even in the same world to me. So I thought that one on the right is really interesting. Like it's a real person with this like anime head, and the background is like photorealistic, but just not doing it for me. So let's talk about Mid-Journey. Has everyone seen these pimped out popes before? Okay. If you haven't, these were made with Mid-Journey. Mid-Journey basically is text to images. You have to access it. Well, and this shows you like the journey of like a banana using Mid-Journey. It can help you create illustration, logo, oil painting, watercolor painting, concept art, character design, anime, photography. It's very good at taking direction. You have to access it on Discord. Right about here is where you get stuck. It sends you into this loop. Just get past it and you're in Mid-Journey. It's worth it. Do it. And you have to create an image, you use a prompt. Everyone knows what a prompt is? Prompt. Just in case, prompt tells AI what to do. It's as simple as a conversational sentence, or it can be super structured to get a very direct output the more you research. So we're gonna look at a certain style today that helps you to get like a very direct output. There's 3 main styles to work with Mid-Journey: Imagine, Blend, or Describe. Imagine is like the basic one. Type any type of sentence, any type of key phrases. Blend is when you bring 2 images together, or at least 2 to 4. And Describe is really interesting because you can really just cheat the system and take a picture of anything and upload it, and it gives you the exact prompt to create that, and it recreates it for you. So that's an easy way to see like how you can create something. These are a lot of the key terms to play with if you want to take a note of that picture. Anybody wants it, feel free to take pictures of the screen as much as you want. I do not care. I care a little bit, but no, go ahead. All right, so let's go back. So interesting in DALL-E, you may not know it, but when it creates an image for you, you can go into the info and it'll show you the prompt. So it'll show you how it made that, right? Which is cool. And then I wanted to see, let's take that exact prompt that DALL-E made. This is here, I put /imagine, and took that and put it in Mid-Journey. So those are the 4 styles it gave me. Still not like, in my head I have a vision, so I want to dig deeper. So we're gonna try atomic prompting. So atomic prompting is like building Legos with AI. And in the product design world, atomic design is like building design with like a Lego of a style guide of approach, you know, like how am I applying my color styles from the CTA to, you know, the hero in a page to the overall, you know, ecosystem of design, right? So you want to be able to build a design style or design strategy that you can scale throughout the growth of whatever project. Same with atomic prompting. So let's try it out. All right, so those are all the different types on the right. And just really quickly, I guess. So the subject is where we're going to describe the subject and their action. The photography type, you can basically insert the type of, cinematic, documentary, and I'll show you a full list. Actually, let's just go into it. So let's start with photography type. I made a little list here. So this is where you would be able to choose things like portrait, landscape, cinematic is like a very common one to go with. Aerial, wildlife, astrophotography. So when you put that in there, you're able to direct the style of that. So I'm going to choose that for this image because I want it to feel like, of course, I'm looking at a big screen. Then for subject action, this is where you're going to put the subject and what they're doing. So for this, I put James. He's a nostalgic software developer. He's typing on the keys of a vintage typewriter. And for Aria, who's the other character in the film, I'm putting that this is a rebellious digital artist, and her element and her hand is guiding a light pen over a glowing tablet. Once again, this is why this is like prompt like a film director. Not everybody's gonna do this, but that's why it's really interesting to see like what comes out from you guys on how you would use this, because that's where it's gonna be the most illustrious. Shot types, you guys know this more than anybody, but I went with a wide shot because I want to see the habitat and the space and that room, and I want that to be a part of, you know, this is the initial look at my character. I'm trying to sell this story. For a location, you want to think about like the vibe, the time capsule, or, you know, like it's a playground where the story feels right at home, something like that. So the location is important because, of course, like, let's say like the movie Her, like what city was that actually? I think it was like Tokyo. But like obviously that has a really big impact on the type of story we're telling. So I put James is in his workspace designed with lots of plants, wood, furniture, and vinyls. It's starting to tell his character. Aria is in her studio with a blend of old school art and new age tech. The point is trying to show that they're attached to the old world, they live in this new world, they kind of have a friction with that. For fashion, it's really interesting. So how are we going to dress the set, the era? This is kind of a dystopian film, so, you know, it's a little bit of a mix. He dresses like, I based him off of what's that movie with Owen Wilson and they're in Midnight in Paris.
Midnight in Paris.
There we go. So he's like that guy. And then Aria, she's kind of a Spike Jonze type of chick, I don't know. So she likes Basquiat paintings and she's into vibrant strokes of color and statement jewelry. So that's them. Set the clock to frame the scene. So you can say the year. You don't have to do all these things, but it really does help. And one of the other importances of atomic prompting is that there is a certain emphasis on the way you prioritize phrases and the amount of tokens that are in a prompt, and it has short-term memory. So there's a reason why you're going to lead with photography type. There's a reason you should lead with the subject and action, so it truly captures that. There are ways, of course, to add emphasis on certain areas by doing the double colon. I think you learned that already. To add, you put 2 colons after a word, and then you add a number between 1 to 5, and that puts like the intensity on a word. All experiments. Okay, so we chose 2035. Then we want to choose the film stock and the camera. I went with Ari, Alexa Mini, and then I think the camera I chose was the Cine still. I'm not sure. Channel the lens, the style, and the flair of your favorite visionary. So for this, I went with Ghibli. I actually think I changed my mind, but in the beginning, I really wanted to see like how far and wide this would go. But it's really cool of how you can basically just like an ad lib this direction, and then set the tone to feel the emotion of the scene. And I think so we went with empathy, and then lighting, of course, and practical light. Another really cool exercise, because I don't think everyone in this room has a background in film. The way I laid out these prompts in a way that works for me, but I think that's another great way to work with these things, whatever the subject is. I basically had the lighting styles. I asked it to create a list of lighting styles, keep the definition, actually I said describe the definition as if you're talking to a 10-year-old first. And then I said actually make it a little bit more mature, but keep it short and use it for people who are interested in telling stories. And then I would just keep playing with it more and more. So I think that's a really great way to kind of make a simple list of reference for how you want to learn about something. Or even when I'm in the room sometimes and, working in an agency world, I have to work with tons of clients with backgrounds that I'm not always familiar with. So if I have to learn about a brief immediate, I would say break this down for someone who has like 5 minutes with no jargon and needs to, follow the specific intention. So I think just framing things for your audience and for yourself is really important. Okay, so now color palette, great. Made a list, different fun styles to choose from. I went with desaturated pastels. And then this is really I think, probably one of the most interesting things I learned in exploring here. So -- SRF at the end over there is a style reference. So you can take any image as your style reference. So I could have gone through that whole thing, which was unique and interesting and different, right? Your own point of view. But you're like, but I want it to look like the Barbie movie or something. And so you could take a specific scene and frame it to look like that, but through your point of view. So I think that is one of the most interesting things from my research on this. Is anybody familiar with this website, Shot Deck? Is everyone familiar with this website? Pretty much, kind of.
No.
Raise your hand if you've seen this website before. Okay, see, that's because I'm here. But this is a really great place to pull the style references, of course. So I, for my process, went to this site, found my reference, chose the photo. I thought it's a really cool way to learn on, the style, like what their photography was, what the direction was for that scene, all that information, great. But regardless, I'm mainly here to grab that image as my style reference, because I like the color style, the lighting, the way the characters are portrayed. Cool. Now that I went through that whole process, I'm basically filling in the blanks to create my prompt, and this now becomes my foundation for all of the images that I'm going to create in my trailer. So it's a super long prompt, but it works. And once I went and took that and pasted it into Midjourney, I get a world of characters. So I start to get a bit of what James could look like. I start to get a bit of what Arya could look like. And after the team kind of explored a little bit more and we took all those explorations, just imagine they're kind of sitting in the room for an hour talking it out, we have a mood board of what our characters would look like. So now this is our reference. This could be used in tons of ways. The costume designer, of course, to detail, to who could potentially be bringing this story to life. But there's a lot of different ways now that you can easily show the point of view that is probably hard to capture within your own head. All right, any questions?
That was created on Midjourney, right? Those
Yes.
Pictures? And can it generate videos too, or is it just pictures?
It can't generate videos, but we will go into that next. So okay, we'll go there. So let's pretend it's the afternoon. Actually, we're exactly there right now. It's 3 o'clock. They have all their images. They've created their characters. They have a layout of their story, and now they're ready to bring it to life into a trailer. They're gonna maybe a trailer, like just a mini vision video of bringing the story to life. So they're gonna use Runway. Has anyone used Runway? Yeah. Runway is pretty straightforward, and I'm showing it looping over here. I'm gonna play it up here. So it's pretty much a drag and drop of bringing an image here. So I'm gonna, there you go. I drag this image in here of Aria. You have these settings here. You always just want to have remove watermark selected, and you can play with all these different settings, and you can see it's showing you, it's gotten better, like month over month. So it gives you a preview of how that image is going to be seen. The brush is really cool because you have 5 different brushes per image, and then you can adjust how much those areas move, how they move, so on and so forth. You don't have to do that. You could literally just drag an image in there and say generate and animate it and see what happens. It's all an experiment, and then it generates over there as simple as that. Usually takes about a minute or less. And then this is an example of what it looks like where I did direction. I was like, all right, move this around. I wasn't thinking about it too much, and without any direction. So I would say like this is where you like, you know, just too much happens. It's a rabbit hole, but sometimes it's quite simple. I would say the other important thing from this is back to Midjourney is like creating a consistent character. And there's a few different routes. Do you want any more questions on Runway? I'm gonna show you something come to life, but any questions on Runway?
Does it work across like multiple images? Like will it create like a consistent style through, like if you're uploading multiple things basically?
So you can save a preset, but it's different, like depending on each image. You know, when I created those settings here and I drag a new image here, those settings will be still set. You know, you're gonna want to adjust because if you use the brush or I'm highlighting a face, I'm highlighting a hand, obviously it's gonna change. But you can save those presets. You can't bulk images, it'd have to be one by one, but you can save those things as a preset.
Is it like integrated with Midjourney, or do you have to manually take?
Manually, yeah.
Is this what the guy
Yes.
said he was using?
Yes.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Anything else? Runway is really like the way to go. Between Midjourney and Runway, that's what you're seeing most people use. I'm gonna show you a quick view of like one image through a bunch of different animation tools for AI, but preferably I'm always gonna go Midjourney and Runway if I'm trying to create like a little AI visual, whichever it is.
Is there any way you can upload images that can customize it or enhance it in any way?
In Runway?
Or any of the programs that you show?
Yeah. So you're like if the resolution stinks on Midjourney.
Yeah, like any way to modify it if that's possible, because I'm seeing the way this is, and anytime when you want to remodify it or build on things that you already did, it can do it.
So there's a lot of different modifications. The simple thing is like upscale an image. The first time you create an image in Midjourney, it might come out a little, for the most part they're high resolution, but you can always click upscale, creative, and it'll make it a little bit more unique. Like let's say if like there's an eye that's like on the eyebrow, or like, you know, 4 fingers versus 5, and you do upscale creative, it gets better. Runway is a multifaceted tool, but the one that people are mostly using it for is image to video. Yeah, so yes, and 20 other things to say. So I'm just gonna say yes and.
Okay, a good.
Okay.
Yes.
But consistent characters is probably one of the things that people are most interested in. It's like if you want to make a storyboard, if you want to make a book, if you want to make a little film, like, so this is one of the ways to do it, is remix. I just went, and I'll show you again, I just went to that image, I said very subtle, and I edited the prompt. I didn't delete everything from it, and once again, this is just a giant experiment, but you can just remix it and it'll create another image in its likeness. So I'll show you there's 3 styles. So blending them together, you just do / blend. It's the less likely route, sometimes it works. Remix, the one I just showed you to the right, is like the medium most likely to work. The most likely, that does take 30 more minutes to talk about, which I didn't put in here today. I would just even TikTok this to create a style sheet. You'll see that there's a prompt for this. You could just say, make this character into a style sheet with dynamic poses, and it'll create it like a layout of this character in a bunch of different areas. You take 3 screenshots of the styles you like from that. You upload it using this thing called Prefer Option Set, and then it creates your point of reference for that character. So every time you put prefer, or you put the name of that you put in this Prefer Option Set, it's going to create a character that is very close, or that character. I play with all of these when I'm in this rabbit hole, and these 2 work the best. But that one up top does too. So just when you have the time, effort, and energy for a good reason, you should definitely try all 3. Yes?
I've used like other platforms for generating like images and videos, and I noticed like sometimes there's like a bit of a lag when you're trying to do your videos. So with this platform, are there any like specific settings that you need to go in and like use to mitigate that, or does it depend on like the amount of input that you have into what you're doing?
When you say a lag on like it creating the video for you?
Yeah, like some videos will be smoother than others.
Don't check interpolate.
Okay.
That one, I think I had it there. And the settings, just basically uncheck everything and just have remove watermark. Interpolate apparently makes it a little bit less smooth, like when you ask it to smooth out the frames. You're asking it to assume things in a state that's like, it's too early for it to get everything right. You don't want it to, you want it to try hard, but you don't want to try too hard.
Gotcha.
Try so hard that it hurts the actual anatomy of whatever you're trying to replicate. So imagine they spent an hour on that. And it's at the end of the day, and they're in the room with the film producers or whomever they might be, and instead of them just emailing them that plot line, the script, and the characters, they're able to now create some visuals that truly immerse someone in their story, and that is clearly the best way to get anybody to attach to your story. It's always better to show than tell. So let's see the preview of this psychological thriller rom-com, and then I'll show you more things, but let's just look at this little video.
This is Lumina, our gilded cage. A place where safety overshadows touch, and connections are just echoes of what they used to be. Enter Aria, whose canvas yearns for a burst of life amid monotony, and James, a coder whose curiosity is his compass. Through heartstrings, an app designed to weave isolated souls together, Aria and James find a flicker of connection. Yet, as they draw closer, James uncovers a sinister thread within Heartstrings' code. Heartstrings, it seems, plays a darker tune. It harbors a design that threatens to unravel the fabric of human connection itself. James stands before a sea of data, a revelation dawning. But when love challenges the system fights back. It's a battle for the soul of humanity, a fight to anchor love in a world where it's at risk of being washed away. Join us as we chart a course back to the heart of what it means to be truly connected. Before it's too late.
Alright, so clearly I watch a lot of rom-coms. It's very romantic, right? Okay. But what'd you think of that? Did you like it?
Yeah.
I hope so.
That
Well,
was creepy.
creepy? Yeah, I like, the idea was like Black Mirror meets You've Got Mail. But, you know, it's very hard to like paint that story to someone without a visual, right? It's like, no one would, maybe some people could think of that, but I think it would be hard to get someone into that mentality from your point of view. So the goal is like, I think it's just one of the best ways to get your point of view across. But let's just look at a quick look at other mediums to animate with. So back in December when I did AI for music, we were choosing between 3 songs, and one of them was Santa Comes to Soapy. So I'm just going to show you through a few different routes of how he looks in different areas. So Midjourney, I made this image in Midjourney. Okay, so another one is Pika Labs. Pika Labs is in Discord. It's actually free right now, and it's actually very good. You know, I didn't have to tell it anything. I just do /animate, and it animated that immediately. So you could see what that looked like. Pretty good. You know, it kind of already assumes, it's very good at assuming the best thing to do with the photo. But it's usually very pixelated, which I don't love, but it's, you know, a very good source and very simple and easy to use. Then there's Kyber, which you've seen in that Marvel opening trailer. You saw it in that music video. A lot of major film people are using this as a route. It's not as common, I don't know why, but it's a very interesting route. Like, you choose all these different prompts, like evolve, or, you know, it's a very long experimental process, but a lot of people use it, and this is where you get that like never-ending animating style that you've probably seen, which is like cool for, you know, a lot of things. And you can have it do like the rotations, just like you saw in the music video. Runway, of course, we've heard about. Just saw how to use that. And this is actually on the older model, so I'm just gonna show you like the resolution, how that one came out. CapCut is interesting for quick editing. It feels strange to tell you like what the best editing tool is, but for people who are maybe not film directors in the room or film friendly, or don't know like the highest, I guess like, or don't I work with as complicated tools, CapCut is a great way to edit all of these things together, and it actually has a great AI feature where you can upload a script of text and it creates an automatic music video for you, which I did there. I think I have it here. Will the sound play? So I took a song that I created for the event. I pasted the lyrics, chose the Santa voice. I mean, this is just for fun, and you're not going to use this to sell your story, but it just shows it could work. So you have all the routes quickly generated based off of the music, and created this with all of it. It created all of those images immediately. So let's see.
Down in South Beach, where the palm trees sway, Santa's trading in his sleigh for a Chevrolet. Oh, ho, ho.
We don't have to go through that whole thing, but it's, you know, once again, it's open to your creativity how you want to use it. Before I get into the last section, any questions?
So, what about the narration that you had in your trailer?
Oh,
how was the audio
yeah.
created for that?
I used 11 Labs.
11 Labs.
Yeah, so in that same thread that I was showing throughout this story, I had it create a voiceover for me. Then I edited it a bit, and then I did the same process of, if you were Spike Jonze or Sofia Coppola or whoever, like, what would your notes be on? I did that back and forth. Took that script in the similar way that I just used CapCut, and there's a tool called 11 Labs that creates AI generated voices. and you can use your own voice, and then it creates an AI voice for you. You can use a public figure. I used it once for like Maya Angelou to create like women in tech video for something. Yeah, and they already have like pre-generated voices in there if you want to use something like smoother and less experimental, but 11 Labs. And then you just download it and drag it on in.
Cool.
Yes.
If you use these tools to create content, what's the copyright information you need to share?
So for now, it depends on what you're using. And that's what's interesting, you know, that like regulation with education. It's like, you know, with the strike saying, you know, unless you have permission, you cannot take the likeness of Denzel Washington's eyes or Julia Roberts', you know, pinky nail. But there's really, it's almost impossible to trace every element. If you're using it for profit, if you were to upload that onto something like Instagram, it would most likely at one point potentially be able to be tracked. But right now it's kind of an open playing field. But that's the importance of this part, the importance of the human in the loop, because, you know, it's for us to give feedback and say, oh, you know, the shoes are off, or, you know, look at, when you get sore and you're like, look at this thing, it's so stupid, I can't do these chairs, right? That's one point of feedback, but I think the most important feedback is things like that, is like more artists speaking up. You saw that with Midjourney, artists doing the research and noticing that their likeness of their art that they sell for, you know, digital art, whatever it may be, was being used as the foundation for the prompts for Midjourney, right? So there are artists who are working against and working with it. I think it's obviously too soon for us to say where that's going, but, you know, artists like Grimes, the musician, she said, any musician who uses my music, the likeness of my music, we can split 50-50 and you can go use the likeness to create your own version. Other than that, it's pretty impossible to trace. There's no way. Even like just speaking, like you're giving a speech, there's a likeness of it being, you know, influenced by something else, you know, that you said. Now that it's being, you know, for profit through AI, it's just a different landscape. It's a very hard topic. The conversation on what's legit when it comes to influence, what's fair, is like a never-ending story. It's just more interesting now with AI. So it's, yeah, it's very hard to trace, but it's very important to stay informed. Yes?
Is that true also with ChatGPT text? Like if I wanted to bust these guys for using it on a final, would I be able to?
Don't ask me. Well, no, yeah, don't ask me. Yeah.
I guess it's a free for all.
Okay. Bolognius, do you have anything to say? My friend Bolognius, he works in film, and he also has integrated, not to put you on the spot, but I just did, has integrated AI a lot into his process. Any thoughts on copyright?
I just worry about when I get sued.
All right, that's really where it's at. So, I mean, the more ethical humans in the loop, the better the future of this. But that's, you know, this is a film director and artist who has really integrated his process into like exploring all these like different styles. You've probably seen his like Wes Anderson like films on the internet. His name is Caleb Ward, Curious Refuge. He has a lot of interesting conversations on how he integrates it in a fair manner. It's just like if you're doing it for profit, that's where it gets sticky. And this was a submission for the agency Gilga that Childish Gambino kicked off. What is interesting about this is Childish Gambino, you know, has such an interesting background, and then he created, you know, Atlanta. He's obviously seen as an amazing type of creative. He's opened this agency where most of the roles there have like AI attached to it, and I think he's a really good example for that point of view of how you can layer people who have a traditional background for these areas and how they're integrating AI. But yeah, the more we go, the more we're gonna see like what does it look like to see, you know, people in places that you might not have seen before. I think it's great for aspirational purposes. For me, one of the first things I started prompting was, what does surreal collage art look like with people who look like me? Because it's one of my favorite pieces of art, types of art, but it was also like mainly like 1950s blonde women always. And I was like always deep searching in Pinterest for like something that like looked a little bit closer to me, and this was like one of the first things I started playing with in Midjourney. And you know, it's fun for this, but how does that look like when, you know, people want to look for a more motivational view of like what they could look like in a healthier version of themselves, in a role that they want to be in. So I think it's really cool just to play with it that way. But most importantly, I'm all for how can you show better than tell? How can you sell your vision better? And clearly this makes it a lot easier. So I'm doing an AI for film contest, but before we get to that, any questions? Yes.
Are there any forums that they should be following to keep up to date? Because AI is changing, you know, every week. There's going to be new tools dropping. Are there any forums that, or places that, if they wanted to stay, like, you know, just like up to date, where should they look?
Yes, I actually skipped those slides because I didn't think I was going to make it to the end on time, but we're just there. H.U.M.A.N, Ben's Bites, and I will get you the other one, but those two are really good to follow, and I'll see which other ones I have for you, but those two are strong.
And are those also for like, I mean, I heard early on with ChatGPT that people would go to like to get specific prompts and stuff like that, they'd go to like Reddit and stuff. Are there
Yeah.
Are there
There's
things
a-
you recommend for like that?
It's just on Reddit, there's a /Midjourney thread, and you'll see people upload. Not everybody uploads their prompts, but that's why you can just use the prompt describe, and it'll show you how to recreate it yourself. But yes, Reddit, and you can just look up the Midjourney thread.
Oh, sorry.
No, you.
Will these slides be available anywhere?
No, well, I can do a follow-up on the prompts, on the prompt like a film director. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for the great presentation. I was wondering your view regarding the impact of this whole world. You know, the workflow you showed from ChatGPT to Midjourney to Runway or Pika or Piper, any of them, is likely to change. It's likely to change soon. It's difficult to stick to any specific workflow. So, and that makes the education of this is difficult, because 3 months from now we might have a completely different workflow of tools. But as we are generating all these images and all these possibilities and imaginative worlds that we couldn't do before, the market and our brains are going to be flooded with all kinds of these new images. How do you think that would impact the motivation of film students 2 years from now to make films?
I think that's a great question, but I think it's better to ask. I'd rather ask you, not to pin it off because I have something to say about everything, but you're sitting in the room. How does your motivation feel now?
I feel like it goes both ways. I feel like at first I was very much like, damn, that's rough. I gotta find a different career. Because like long term, like how many people are gonna get kicked out of the industry on some level? You know what I mean? But I think it's more just about like, it's just how can you use the tool? Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what it is. And yeah, that's just the main thing. There's it's a lot of what you're saying with like, I don't know, I feel like humans can kind of tell when like there's a human behind it on some level, so knowing how to be the human that can be behind it, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, the more I use The more I use it, I think, of course it becomes easier. I think I worked in a design field. A lot of designers were intimidated. I think 90% of the agency I was at, they weren't using it. But I think the more you educate it yourself on it, I think of course, like the less fear resides within it. So, and it's also dependent on how like people are gonna receive it. Are we gonna wanna see, like this was fun for me to sell a story, an idea, but I don't wanna I wanna see the actors in this film. I wanna be able to paint the story of how this story comes across to the people I want to invest in this story with clarity. So it's very easy to get in touch with that, but I don't want to go see the film in AI, personally. I think a lot of people would prefer that. We love film because you're attached to a story, the story behind it, the people's eyes behind it, the feeling that's come across. That was really cool to tell like an initial story, but I'm not getting like the depth that personally I would want. Are we gonna end up in a world like WALL-E, where everybody's just sitting in like recliners, floating around, and I guess value isn't really as valuable anymore, like the human value in a story isn't as valuable? I don't think that's gonna happen. I'm more optimistic in that sense, but that's because I'm really diving deep into it. So that's how I feel.
That might be a few years down the road. I'm just thinking literally 2 years from now.
2 years from now.
I'm not going that far. But
Yeah.
what you're suggesting in terms of that human element, that we need to do something special, something that connects, so the story has depth, the images that they have, the vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely true now, but a year from now, we might have many good stories,
Mm-hmm.
and many good images, and many great films.
Yeah.
And what happens when we have many?
I don't think we will in a year, but if we did, I think that it'll just be another genre to look at. I don't think it'll be, this is gonna overtake what we're used to. I think it'll just be another interesting thing to look at. I don't think that this style of creating a movie is gonna overpower what we're currently used to. I don't think it's gonna be like looking at an animated short. You think something different?
No, I really don't know. One thing I've learned is any statement 2 months later, I'm gonna regret it, so.
Okay. Yeah, I know, I'm the one being filmed, they don't even see your face. All right, well, that's why I'm really interested in this part. So on April 22nd, we're going to be having a panel and an AI for film screening. Some people have already gotten started on this, which is really exciting. And we're going to be showing shorts. So the idea is create a 1 to 2 minute short using AI. Use any of those tools that we saw today. If you saw something new, go for it. But that's really the rules. 1 to 2 minutes. At least, at most, at max. Using AI, you can submit the creative to my email there. Include a video where you introduce yourself. I think that would be nice, just like for the story of all of this, of who you are, what it's about. If you could keep it short, that would keep it manageable. If you could submit by midnight on that Friday ahead of time. The prize is to be determined. But it will be in front of an amazing audience. But yeah, we're gonna work on a prize. But exposure is also a prize. But so is creation, so plenty of things there. Anything else? No, we ended right on time.
Amazing.
Amazing. Thank you guys.
Alright, guys, thank you so much. Jessica, that was amazing.
Thank you.
And yeah, please, I think the space for the Soho House party is limited, is that right?
Yes.
So that means we're gonna prioritize people who submit to the contest, alright? So please submit, and yeah, we hope to see you there on the 22nd.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.